be sitting in the room with the lead singer and I believe founder of the Georgetown. One of the founders in this intimate setting. Come forward because this is not going to happen to you more than once in your life. All right, so take advantage of it. Someone grab for the lights back on. Woo! All right. So welcome. It's an understatement to say that we're really, really delighted you're here.
Thank you very much. I'm also happy to be here myself.
Don't worry. Have you seen this floor? Please. So what can you tell us? So you guys, we're just going to talk, but given our size, you should jump in. I have a bunch of questions, but if there are questions,
that'll be great. Anybody who has a question?
Yeah, and my first, simply my first question is, what is this? You're going around to places and talking, and what's this about?
Let me see. First of all, hello. I'm Shannan Streett. I'm 43. From Jerusalem, lived there pretty much all my life. I have 3 kids. I started with Eleven Chash in 1996, almost 20 years ago. This time around, instead of coming with a band and doing actual performances, I thought it'd be funky to meet you guys in person and talk to whoever wants. I think Israel is still, or again, at a critical time. I feel there's a role for diaspora Jews, and you guys can assist Israel strengthen its democracy. I think that diaspora Jews now, at this point in time, have an unbiased view of crucial issues in Israel. And our view as Israelis, sometimes it's a little bit biased by the media or for whatever reason. And I think we need to depend on our brethren in the West to help us out.
Sister as well.
Okay. Is there a word for brethren and sister? Here, for example, even the fact that I'm sitting with a female rabbi and we're talking about stuff and it's pretty cool, that would be very odd in Israel. But in America, it's most of the time that's the way it is. So I'm not saying it should or could be most of the time like that in Israel, but definitely we need more of it. We need it to be more accepted and we need it to be more common. And I think that'll help us out as a society and as a country. So these are the kind of concepts and thoughts I thought I'd bring with me. Give you some work to do.
Well, it's interesting, just to pick up on, you said you think that we, as diasporic Jews, have an unbiased view on things. Can you talk more about that and what do you mean by
Well, if we're talking about things like human rights, I think it's very clear to somebody from the outside that there isn't 2 types of human rights. There's only 1 type of human rights. There are humans, and they need to have rights. But when you address this topic in Israel, many times you're going to hear people saying, yes, but. It's true, but in our life here in Israel, it's different because ABCD. And the diaspora Jew, being a minority, he knows, or she knows, sister-in, no, that, that
Taking you to school.
like I said, there's no two human rights. There is no, the minority is always used to demanding his rights, expecting his rights. The Jews in Israel are not a minority, and this shifts the whole historical equation around. We shifted from being a minority to being a majority, and we need help sometimes in remembering how things should be. Even if we're a majority, we still need to do what's right.
Do you think that this voice that you're bringing is popular, unpopular, is shared, is an undertone, is out there?
Popular it isn't. Nonetheless, it's the truth. And it can be popular. I always have hope in people. You always have to believe in them. And potential is endless, wherever you go. I'm not bothered by the fact that it's unpopular. It's just a challenge. Make a few songs, they'll be more popular. The songs are popular. They're all about that.
Yeah. So, I'll ask you more about that later, or I'll pick up on it again, but, so you grew up in Jerusalem?
True.
Okay. Can you give us, like, in broad strokes, what Jerusalem is like now? Who's living there? Kind of the scene?
So I grew up in the 70s in Jerusalem. It was a very different town. It was smaller. There was a larger percentage of secular people amongst the Jews. In my building, we had immigrants from the United States, my parents, from Holland, from Yemen, from France, same building. You don't get that anymore. You don't have buildings like that anymore. It's kind of different. Also, in and this to me, by the way, is the biggest asset of Jerusalem to this day. In walking distance from my house was an ultra-Orthodox neighborhood, Abu Kharim, Shkunat Abu Kharim, and also a Palestinian neighborhood, Sheikh Jarrah. And on Saturdays you could go between three worlds walking. And that is still a possibility in Jerusalem. And it's very unique to the city because when you leave the bar that I own in Shuk Machne Yehuda and you walk 10 minutes down the street, you arrive at Poland in the 1700s. And when you walk another 15 minutes from there, you arrive in Cairo. And it's very, very, very special. And it's always very clear to me that if all these societies can find some sort of common ground, so it'll be a great thing. Jerusalem today, it's bigger. It's the biggest city in Israel. It's nothing to you, but it's 800,000 people. The whole of Israel is 8 million, so you're going to meet people from Tel Aviv that tell you Tel Aviv is bigger. It's not true. Tel Aviv has more people in and out every day, but Jerusalem is bigger. Almost double in population, and in size also. But in fact, the city behaves like three cities, because you have the ultra-Orthodox Jewish city of Jerusalem. It has its center, it has its media, it has its, of course, system of beliefs, etc., etc. You have Palestinian Jerusalem, the same. They have their center, They have their transportation system. And you have the Jews that aren't ultra-Orthodox, and they also have their center, and they have their market, and they have their system of beliefs and their media. So it's also a very big city, but also three very small ones. The past 15, 20 years, many secular people are moving out of Jerusalem. A lot of people feel that it's becoming too ultra-Orthodox, too harsh to live in. You know, when there's a terror wave, Jerusalem gets hit pretty hard every time. I think it's easier to get to for terrorists. You know, from the West Bank to Jerusalem, all you have to do is take a cab, and you're there with your knife or whatever, you know? The cost of living is extremely high, and you get less services than you do in other cities with the same cost of living. Cost of living is high in Israel as it is. Plenty of songs about that too.
Yes.
But like I said, you know, for me it's a special place. And I actually learned how to say this sentence in Arabic, and I used it 2 nights ago in a bar in Tel Aviv I had a meeting with a guy who has a club in Ramallah, and he wants to get Israeli acts to perform there. And I don't know if he'll succeed or not, but I learned how to say in Arabic, and I'm saying it now in English, that Jerusalem is not only the heart of the problem, it's also the key to the solution. And if you live a life looking for that key, it's interesting and fun.
You know, I had about 4 to 8 different questions while you were speaking as you went along.
I guess
so
that's a good sign.
I think so, yeah. I'll throw out a couple and please, you know. I believe in Ari Shavit's book, he talks about the post-Ben Gurion, for whatever we feel about Ben Gurion, there wasn't a strong enough vision and centralized vision of what is this place that is Israel, and that these 3-city type existence is what started to happen. That there was no cohesive vision that everyone got behind, and so this kind of happened. I'm wondering if you have thoughts about that first.
I have thoughts about this issue, of course. I didn't read his book, I admit. Maybe I will one day. It's not that I decided not to read it.
Yeah.
The way I see it is like this. When we're talking about Israel and not Jerusalem, we spent 50 to 60 years sticking the pole in the ground. You know, building, sticking it in the ground and making sure that nobody can throw us into the Mediterranean, and that no sudden wind will blow us away from this desert that we now call home. And now the pole is in the ground, and we don't really know what to do now that it's there already, you know? It's no wind is going to blow us out of there, and nobody's going to throw us into the ocean. It's not feasible. It can't happen. So one day they warn you about Hamas, and the next day they warn you about Iran, and the third day they warn you about this, and the fourth day about that, and about ISIS. And it's all real threats and important to deal with, and should be looked at, and should be taken, not to be taken lightly, etc., etc. But none of these things have the strength to move us even 10 centimeters. It won't happen.
Why are you so confident?
Because I live there, and I read between the lines, and I know that I know how the power leans, in which direction the power leans, and I know what we can do, and I know how Israelis think, and I know, you know, every time there's a conflict with Palestine, with Palestinians, there are a lot, I don't want to say numbers because I could be off with the numbers, but I'd say easily double or triple, very easily. More casualties on the Palestinian side. And it's always the Israeli side deciding when to begin, well, not when to begin, but when to end the conflict. And many times it's because of the casualties on our side. That's when we decide that it's, time to ceasefire, withdraw, whatever. This is the way I perceive it, Now, I'm not saying they're right and we're wrong. I don't see it that way at all. I'm just saying this gives you an indication of where the strength is. We're the strong side, and we shouldn't forget that. It's an asset. We need to be the strong side. But it's very hard to be the strong side and pretend that you're not, We can't be, as a society, a one-trick pony, only leaning on our sword, only preparing ourselves for the next threat. There's other stuff that we need to do to become part of the region. And it's pretty tragic because everybody knows what these things are. They've been talking about it openly for 2 decades. And if we chose to build our homeland in the Middle East, we should try to become a part of the Middle East. Not a part of Europe, and not the 51st state. But in Israel, nobody speaks Arabic, and nobody knows Arab pop stars, and nobody watches Arab film, and nobody's interested in anything Arab except for food, which is very tasty. No, I'll tell you what, in food, we are a part of the region. It's been incorporated, and food is very important. I can't live without food. I don't want to live without food.
Yeah.
So it just needs to be, these measures need to be taken in other aspects of life.
Is that where you said Jerusalem can be part of the solution?
For sure.
Is that connected to this? I'm curious if you can talk more about that.
Yes, the proximity that I spoke about before, the fact that you can walk between 3 cultures, and also the fact that in Jerusalem, every society has a just claim to be a deprived minority. There's 3 minorities living there. Nobody's a majority. If you're a member of my society, you're a minority. Because 2/3 of the people are unlike you at all. And if you're an ultra-Orthodox Jew, it's the same. 2/3 of the people are, and if you're Palestinian, again, 2/3 of the people are out to get you. So in this unique framework, something interesting can evolve. If the 3 populations can find a truth that they all stand behind, a story that they all feel comfortable to tell, without wanting to change each other. Just one story that has to do with them and Jerusalem. That could be that could give a lot of hope to the city, to the country, to the region, to the world.
Do you see places where that's operative, where that's happening, where that's starting? Where do you see possibilities? Do you not see that yet?
It's nothing I can really show you like this, and you all agree. But I feel I do feel that it's happening. It's starting. There's a growing number of young Palestinians from Jerusalem embracing West Jerusalem as part of their city. They work in West Jerusalem. This would be very trivial for you guys, but it's not trivial for a city like Jerusalem. We see more ultra-Orthodox people hanging out in West Jerusalem bars. They're not supposed to be doing that. But it happens. So sometimes these 3 little cities become one big city. And it's not enough, but like I said, there are people searching for solutions. I think all it takes is a single story that people can stand behind. Even a sentence could be good, One narrative that every member of the city could adopt.
A Jerusalem narrative.
Yeah?
Yeah.
See, the narrative that now we go by is eternal capital of the Jewish people. So, there's a few problems. First of all, what about the non-Jewish people? You know, only 1/3 of the city. But even if we don't look at them, what about today, tomorrow? Why do I have to live in a narrative for eternity? It's a long time away. Eternity is forever. I need something that I can be proud of now, something that I can stand behind now. I need to understand the reason that I'm living in this city today and tomorrow and the next day. And, you know, eternal capital of the Jewish people, it's not good for today and tomorrow. Arguably, it's a good thing for when the Messiah comes, fine. But
Messiah's not here.
not now, not yet.
Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, so,
Just say your name. So.
my name's Daniel.
Hey.
So you're talking about the narrative that you were just talking about. You're part of the extremely popular musical group in Israel, has a lot of influence. What do you see your role in that narrative? As someone who a lot of people listen to.
I get questions like that quite often, similar questions, and the truth is that I really think that we need to maintain our freedom, artists. We need to have the freedom to write an album. Our next album could be exactly opposite from the one before. We should have that freedom. So, what I try to do with Jerusalem doesn't really have to do with I mean, it might find its way into the songs. I'm not saying it won't. But I do it more as a citizen, not as an artist. The art needs to be free of any, nothing can sit on it. Nothing can sit on it, nothing can weigh it down. Because just imagine, like sometimes we have people saying, but you guys use dirty words and my kids, what about my kids? And I'm like, you know, so play it to them when they grow up. What can I say? So it can't be weighed down by anything. You need to have 100% freedom to write whatever you want, to record whatever you want. And it's just the way it has to be.
You know, I have a follow-up question on that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, there appears to be some sort of, I guess, curse at this point. You know, a lot of the artists that you work with, but that's also just the scene in Israel, they end up completely broke. And they have to play on the streets and they have to beg for money. Just now, you know, Yitzhak Lepto, which is like one of the...
We recorded with him on your
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's almost a curse already at this point. Every one of these artists, you know, that they get to a point where they just beg for money and they ask people to buy their records. And, you know, that's why I wonder if there's kind of an equilibrium to the point where, you know, you want to have the music free from any kind of dependency, but at the same time, it feels like there needs to be some sort of, you know, boost of support, of financial help, of, you know, some vital assistance from some sort of, you know, I don't know, government or any kind of organization.
Well, the music business in the world is changing, has changed.
Yeah.
And it's still looking for its direction. In other words, once upon a time you could make money from royalties, album sales, and live shows. And now you don't make money from album sales at all, and royalties is going down. And we're left with live shows. But, and it comes to a point that Leonard Cohen is touring in his 80s. You understand? So for the fans, it's great. But what about poor Lenny? Maybe he'd rather be doing something else. Who knows? 85 flying to Tel Aviv and packing 50,000 people. It's not good for everybody. Not everybody is Mick Jagger. I think Mick Jagger wants to do it to you guys. But Leonard Cohen with maybe he wants to do something else. I don't know.
How much is it for you?
Just a hat, no cane. He always wears a hat.
He wears a hat.
Yeah, we saw him.
So what is it for you with the band, just to still want to create and do stuff, because there is still a lot of political things to talk about, but there is still the family.
You know, our band, we always say whatever we think. And it's been working so far for us, you know? And pretty early on in our career, we realized that probably like 50% of the people are gonna hate us, but it evens out to 50% that like us. And we also know that none of us are gonna be millionaires from the music business in Israel, so if we can make a living doing this, it's enough, and we are.
I want to go back to something you said earlier. You said that Israel had to become part of the Middle East, not Europe or the US. I'm curious about that sentence because you're nowhere close to becoming part of Europe. Most European countries actually are pretty anti-Semitic and are pretty against Israel, including Western Europe. And do you think that being such close allies with the US is an impediment to becoming a part of the Middle East or helps?
Well, I wasn't talking about, it's, you know, America and Europe, they're crucial for Israel's existence at this point in time, and I understand that, of course. But internally speaking, emotionally speaking, and even like in the educationally speaking, we need to realize where we are. And we need to start extending our hand to the neighbors, not only in the Declaration of Independence. Actually, we need to extend that hand and hope that somebody's going to give a hand back. And I don't see and I don't feel that that's what we're doing. I don't think Israel ever had a prime minister who speaks Arabic. I don't think Israel ever had a foreign minister who speaks Arabic. It's the foreign minister's job is to speak with the surrounding countries. He couldn't do it in their language. The percentage of people who speak Hebrew in the Middle East is the percentage of Jews in North America. It's the same percentage. It would be like you guys expecting all of the Americans and Canadians to speak Hebrew. And not understanding why it's not working. You know?
Do you think it's more of a cultural barrier than anything else? Because you're dealing with countries, I mean, apart from Jordan and Egypt, which at some point, or at multiple points in time, Israel has been able to make certain deals with and has had some communication. You're also dealing with countries who historically have, said that Israel has the right to exist, has the right to be there.
Also, Jordan and Egypt said that.
But you think it's about a cultural barrier rather than...
I think that the cultural barrier helps people hide in their comfort zone. And if we were more Arab about ourselves, if we had a more Arabness about us, it would be harder to hide in these comfort zones. I also want to point out, without getting too political, that I think it was 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 years ago, that there was a Saudi Arabian initiative for peace in the Middle East that all of the Arab countries signed, and Israel didn't take a second look at. You know, so the story there's a lot of ways to tell the story. A lot of ways, and when Sadat came to Jerusalem, I was 7, song about that too. And it was shocking because Egypt was the Arab superpower, calling for destroying Israel, going at us with everything they have just 4 years earlier. With everything they had, 1973, just let them at us, you know? And then he comes and he changes the equation, and in a way it's lasting till now, and they've gone through crazy stuff over there. But still agreements that are holding, and hopefully will continue to hold. So actually the political situation is something that can be changed, and that can shift.
I will say I've heard this before recently, that if Israel would embrace its Arab sort of location
Arabness.
and Arab identity at some level, that would help with break down cultural barriers. It's interesting. It's not the first time I've heard it. It's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Out of curiosity, there's a lot of, as you'd say, Jewish diaspora organized groups in the U.S., like David Project, AIPAC, J Street, many of which came into being immediately following the Intifada, because there's a lot of American Jews that didn't know what they could be doing to like cope, whether emotionally or politically, with the fact that all this terrorism was going on in Israel at the time. And I guess I was just wondering what, like, if you identify more strongly with one group in the U.S. Versus another, or what your take is on that.
I don't really know much about it. Everybody knows APEC and J Street, but to be honest, I worked with both. And I'll be happy to do so in the future. And from what I hear, like, let's say, from what I hear about them, I think J Street is probably more up my alley. But like I said, on the personal level and on the business level, and even like more than that, everybody was fine. I think they're doing what they should.
Can I just sort of a follow-up on that in terms of not the group so much themselves, but the approach? You know, you started by saying that the diaspora community has what to offer Israel, which is really interesting too, because sometimes I encounter a lot of ambivalence about that. You know, you don't have a role, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't live here, you really shouldn't say anything. You know, just lend out your support. Or, and every different kind of version of that. And then the counter approach is, well, America, the amount of dollars that we put into Israel earns us a voice in its internal workings.
That's not the counter approach in my view. The counter approach is that if you're Jewish and you say, I'm Jewish, and you believe I'm Jewish, so you have a share in Israel. Because 100 years ago, when there was no state of Israel, it would still be important to you, right? So it's just important to you because you're Jewish, and therefore, you know, you have a say.
What do you think we can do that's productive?
I don't exactly know the roads that need to be taken, but Israel is struggling with its democracy. There's a slow deterioration.
Yep.
Close enough.
In freedom of speech. The media market is changing to the worse. There's free newspapers handed out by the government, pamphlet newspapers. So all the newspapers that cost money, a lot less people buy. And there's every other month there's a threat to close a major TV channel. There's a slow deterioration, like I said, in human rights. And when I look at the past events in Israel, for instance, an example I like giving is what happened with the women in the Kotel. Regardless of where you stand on this issue, I mean, I can guess where you stand.
That's kind of stuff. I don't have any feelings
But
about
I would say, like, even if anybody, wherever you stand on it, there's no doubt that this was a lesson in democracy for the Israeli public. And I think 50% of the women were American, or were American, or they brought American values, not even American values, just democratic values, into this discussion, into this argument. The argument that I can worship the way I believe, however it should be done. It's a democratic argument. It's not only a religious argument. And every time, and Israel needs to be challenged. It's true. We're the only democracy in the Middle East at this point. But we still need to make it better. And we don't want that to change. We need to remain a democracy, and hopefully there'll be a dozen of democracies, and it still will be the best one, you know? It's not something just to hide behind, it's something to work at and keep alive. Also, I'm thinking about the Arab Spring. In a perfect world, Israel could be of assistance to all these countries, you know, overthrowing their dictators. And it's kind of sad that not that they're openly waiting for us to march in there and tell them how to do it. But there are organizations and even individuals in every one of these countries that need help in doing the right thing. And we do have some sort of experience because we are some sort of a democracy. because we are a democracy. And I also have hope in the Arab Spring as an individual, as an Israeli, because, well, to be honest, because I'm listening to the music happening in the Arab countries now, and there's an explosion of incredible music. And if they can produce that, they can produce great things. There's an incredible alternative Arab scene right now, as we speak. And
Where?
I've heard bands from Lebanon. I've heard bands from Syria. I've heard bands from Egypt. Of course, Palestine. There's also famous stuff from Tunisia, but I haven't heard it. I just know that, it's on my to-do list.
It's our Facebook.
Right. So there's websites, alternativearabmusic.com. Cool, all day, 24 hours you can hear like stuff, and a lot of it's going to be amazing. And very fresh. Very fresh, because when an Arab guy or sister in meets a hip-hop beat, or meets an electronic groove with his Arabness, it just, when the mix is new and different than what we're used to hearing. So there's an explosion of talent in the Arab world now. I believe we're going to see it in cinema too. Probably that usually comes next. And we'll see. It's going to be good.
Is that a place of potential collaboration or existing collaboration in terms of the arts, music?
I'm working on it very hard with a few friends in Israel. It's not easy at all. We've offered bands that we like to meet in neutral ground, Cyprus, Amman, wherever they want. It's still not possible, but you only need one. You need one gutsy guy, like the guy from Ramallah who has a club. Maybe it's going to be a business person. You know what I'm saying? We'll get to them.
Shannan, I read about a band that Arabs and Israelis came together, and when they were in the Arab country, they were having a lot of trouble because of censorship. So do you know one?
Yeah, it's not an easy thing for them to do. First of all, there's Arabs and Israelis collaborate in Israel. Arab Israelis, like Palestinian Israelis. I've collaborated with members of the Palestinian community in Israel and performed with them. They might be like outcasted in their country if they do it, but some people are willing to take that chance for the sake of art. Some people there are individuals. The biggest name in the underground Arab music scene in the world is a band called Mashru Leila. It means night project. These guys, I think they met in medical school in Beirut or something like that. Some are gay, some are straight, some are Christian, some are Muslim, some are men, some are women. They started a band. It's a great band. They sound amazing. Like, they sound very unique style and whatever. I think it was about a year ago, the Red Hot Chili Peppers had a show in Beirut, and the next day in Tel Aviv. Mashru Leila was supposed to open for the Red Hot Chili Peppers in Beirut, and when they heard they're going the next day to Tel Aviv, they said, okay, we're not opening for you. Now this isn't the political opinions of the members of the band. This is the reality right now, financial reality, political reality of the society in Lebanon. I know that these guys meet Israelis, but they won't record with us, and they won't have it like, what's the word? documented in any sort of way, you know? Okay, We'll get to them. Not them, we'll get to someone. It'll be okay.
Do you think that it's a risk to their, like, physical well-being? I mean,
Could
is it
be.
that, or it's political, or?
Could be. I wouldn't put it past the Middle East. We had our prime minister murdered, assassined. Egypt had their guy assassinated. Lebanon had their guys assassinated many times. Artists are being, it's a crazy part of the world.
Do you think maybe, it's often like talked about how, and I think maybe a lot of us would agree that Israel is always the, like you said before, Israel has the power in the relationship, right? With its Arab neighbors, certainly with the Palestinians. You guys as a band, you have the power. You can travel if you want to. You can, not always safely, but you can travel. You can choose to collaborate, and it's actually it's the others who would face all the hardship if they were to collaborate with you. I'm sure you guys would find some backlash as well, but generally speaking, what you say
Probably
is,
harder on them, yes.
right. Do you think it, in a way, is your responsibility, or it's ethically better to kind of, I'm not saying not try, not fight, but to let them come to you, wait, sit back and say, we're always an open door, we're always open, but let them define the terms of any kind of collaboration in art, but I guess I'm talking broadly as well.
No, I don't know what to say. I'm open to their suggestions, you know. For me, it's more than anything, it's an artistic thing. I want to be part of this artistic explosion in the Middle East. It intrigues me. And this is how I approach it when I approach them. In the meantime, I've only failed. I say it openly. My next best attempt would be in trying to collaborate with the diaspora Palestinians, diaspora Moroccans, Algerians. France is loaded, Germany is loaded with people like this. I know bands also from there. I've shared stages in Germany with a band from France. It can be done. It's just like a little bit less exciting, you know?
But
it can be done.
The trouble here with collaboration, it doesn't necessarily have to, you said your parents are American?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds so much of a parallel to Israel, to the Zionist project, which is that maybe we can try to act more Arab and act more Middle Eastern, but like, you're white and have American parents, and Israel is a country built originally by Ashkenazi Jews from Europe. So we can try to act more Arab, and I really honestly believe that you can be open to that, but is there kind of like a limit to how much you can be a part of that?
Two things I want to say. First of all, of course there's a limit. They're Muslim, I'm a Jew. They're Arab, I'm Jewish. They speak Arabic, I speak Hebrew. Of course there's a limit. We're not talking about the limit. We're talking about the other side. But also, try to think about this. Actually, Israel, and I don't know, you say built by Ashkenazi Jews, I'm not a historian, but there are historians that will argue even about that. But Israel managed to bring to its borders people from almost every country. You know, from very, very different countries, different climates, different foods, different everything. Different interpretations of Judaism, you know. Managed to bring them all to the same little place, and somehow, most of the time it works. So why, I don't think it's beyond us to take another step and towards the Arab world. Bring a little bit more of that in. You know, I think we can only benefit from it.
And I want to continue on that note. And, you know, first of all, I'll give a personal thank you. I'm just going to do a little quick personal story here. When I applied to Georgetown, into the School of International Relations here, one of the first things they ask you is to write a whole essay, a whole story about a global issue and how you want to solve it. And back when I was sitting in Israel and Jerusalem in my computer and trying to figure it out, I remember hearing one of your interviews and seeing, the Nachash so often, and then hearing about, in the passing about the Max Green School of Hand in Hand, and it just hit me at that point. I started writing a whole essay about just, putting Arabs and Jews in, very, in young frameworks, in young groups, from the very beginning, so they can start socializing. And that's the thing, children in the end, they don't see all these colors that we see in a later age. They don't, they don't care if, parents, if both parents are if they're gay or not. They don't care about any of these things. For them, it's just, they see things very, very simply. And that goes the same way for our political issues. So I want to thank you for that, because that's probably one of the reasons I'm here now.
You're welcome.
But,
You got a Jewish boy from where? From where are you
From
from?
Jerusalem.
From
No,
Jerusalem
no,
to a Jesuit university. You did a good job.
So that story, exactly. So when you talk about that school and sending your kids into that kind of school system so they can, absorb as much of the Arab culture as possible, how did it hit you in your own home? And that whole incident happened about, was it a month ago already, 2 months
Yeah,
ago?
it wasn't long ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was this school was
Somebody
was
tried to
arson.
torch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. An organization that's against, I don't know what's the word for it, it's like mixture.
Assimilation.
Assimilation, yeah.
But,
It teaches in Arabic and Hebrew. You want to explain the Abiyat a little?
yeah, the school my kids go to is the bilingual school. It's half Arab, half Jewish. The teachers are half and half, the principals are half and half, the students are half and half. They learn all the lessons in Hebrew and Arabic. The teachers are not supposed to translate, so the kids are supposed to be exposed to both languages from age 3 to 18. The hand-in-hand school system has 4 schools in Israel with about 1,500 students. 800 of them go to Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is the biggest and most successful school of its kind. I have 3 kids in the school. One's 11, one's 8, and one's 5. And a couple of months ago, somebody tried to burn the school down.
What did the kids say?
You know what? Here's, the saying, "Ma'az yatsa matok." From,
Difficult came sweet.
yeah, it became sweet. Really. I'm not just saying it. Those kids got so much love in the weeks after it happened, from all over the country, from the Likud. Members of parliament from the Likud came to visit the school, and they said, "No, it's not going to happen under my watch." And all kinds of youth movements with cotton candy and recess, and they felt
Right.
they felt like that they're doing. They know from the first day they're doing something a little weird.
Yeah.
And then when somebody tries to torch it, maybe it's true. Maybe they could be scary.
Right.
But there was a 5,000 person, the whole school system in the country has 1,500 students. So that would be, with parents, 4,500. They had 5,000 people marching in Jerusalem.
The profile here also skyrocketed, and there was a lot of fundraising, there was a lot of outreach here towards the group.
When we talk about the assimilation, people who stood in that organization, people in general, there was also, that wedding that was between a Jewish woman and an Arab guy from Jaffa. People just, revolted, it was disgusting. And, I hope it's not too personal a question, but I'm wondering, for your own personal point of view, you wouldn't mind your kids getting married with Arabs at all, right? Or how did you feel about that?
A few years ago, my son was in 1st grade, my oldest son, now he's in 6th grade, and somebody on TV asked me that question. What about if your son is going to get married? I told him he's in 1st grade. He's in 1st grade. I prefer that they marry a Jew. Don't tell them. But if she's incredible and amazing, and she's right for him, so it's also it's better than a Jew.
I'm hearing so much throughout this conversation, an artist, a person, a father, a human being who's almost reaching for a normal life in a musician who's trying to do music, trying to send his kids to school, and there are these things, there are these arsons, and there are these, you know, and you say in your song, Anim Anim, Anim Amin, you say, Ani lo yachol, right, to carry the mishkol, the weight, b'kol makom she'elech. And every place that I go, carry this weight around, and I'm wondering about that weight, and I'm wondering about how it feels to live the life that you're living.
I don't know, what do you mean? Usually it feels okay.
Okay.
It's my life, I can't like go outside and say, listen, I'll tell you what, if it would feel terrible, I'd probably make some changes, some amendments.
But what's this, you talk about a weight, I'm also thinking about, you know, your song Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. It seems to me those are two responses to the same weight.
Anim, you know? It really tells the story of like so many different things in Israel that need to be fixed, need to be dealt with. I mean, the list doesn't end in our country, and sometimes it gets heavy. Sometimes it's heavy, you know, and so you write a song about it.
I'm watching the clock, by the way, was it another about 5 minutes?
Yeah.
So
What you're saying about having Israelis integrated into the Middle East, it really resonates with me. And I think you're right. And I think it's something that's very hard for the segments of society that you talked about. I mean, Haredim, ultra-Orthodox. A lot of them come from Eastern European backgrounds, and you know the Ashkenazi and Sephardic division is very entrenched. But is that something that you've ever kind of exploited, a way of reaching out to the Sephardic community who themselves, a lot of them lived in Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, all of North Africa, and so they lived with Arabs. A lot of them speak Arabic. My grandparents come from Tunisia; they still speak Arabic. And I guess for them, the Arab identities would be a lot stronger, and their kids would be a lot stronger than for Ashkenazim. So I'm wondering if you've ever, you're talking about reaching out to bands in France, but what about just reaching out to Sephardic people who...
my band, we have 2 Ashkenazis, 2 Sephardim, and 2 mixed. Half and half. For me, it's a non-issue. For me, the Sephardi Ashkenazi in my life, it's a non-issue.
No, I mean, have you found it easier to reach out to people who have Sephardic origins about kind of embracing that Arab identity?
I see it like this. In the early days of Israel, the Sephardi community could have been a great gap to the region.
Yeah.
So Irish elite says.
But I guess, for various reasons, that didn't happen. And now the people that can be the bridge are the Palestinian Israelis. They can be the bridge.
That's no longer an option.
Your grandparents speak Arabic, but your parents? And you? And your children? If and when? You need to speak Arabic. That's קודם כל, דבר ראשון, first thing that needs to be done. And there was a politician from the Likud party, very famous, David Levy. He spoke Arabic, and he speaks Arabic. He's still around, but he's not a politician anymore. And I remember argument when he was supposed to be foreign minister, and I remember talking he can't speak English. How can he be foreign minister? I'm not thinking to myself, okay, he can't speak English. We'll get somebody to translate him into English. He can speak Arabic. Why do we need a middleman when we have politicians speaking Arabic, but we can't even imagine a middleman when it's English? It's the wrong guy for the job if it's English. This is upside down. This is crooked, in my opinion. There are a few organizations of Mizrahi Jews in Israel who still want to bridge the gap. A few scholars, a guy called Yossi Yona, he's in the Labor Party. They just had their preliminary elections over there, and he's in a place where he might get in this time. So this notion does exist. But like I said, in my life, I have no, they're all the same to me, and I'm the same to them. But it's true that culturally speaking, if, like, even like the Moroccan guys in my band, two of them I said, they make jokes in Arabic, Moroccan Arabic, when they imitate their grandparents, you know, so there is something to lean on. It's true that there is. It's true that there is. But we need a little more of that.
Next question?
So you've been talking a lot about the music and how you are hoping that the music is going to be the push through. And in the past, during the Cold War, a lot of times the thaws came when American bands played in the Soviet Union, Soviet albums were released in America. Do you really think that when push comes to shove, the thing that's going to break the ice is artistic collaboration, and that that's going to do what politics and economics haven't been able to do?
I don't know if that's what's going to do it, but it'll be something that can't be overlooked. It'll be a form of cooperation and unity, and that's what I'm looking for.
Well, I have a million other questions, but I think we'll end on that.